In session 23 here, we're going to be looking at briefly several operations. All that's going on here is they're indicating to you that oftentimes there are mathematical algebraic problems that include several different operations within the same problem and including negative numbers. Remember, an operation being four main ones being addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And so here's an example here of what we're talking about. You have a simple formula where you have both multiplication and subtraction going on within the same problem that include negative numbers. In this particular problem here, let's imagine that you're throwing up into the air an object. Maybe it's a heavy stone. Maybe the stone weighs 5-6 pounds, whatever. So you're tossing it up into the air. Let's say that this particular formula that I made up describes the velocity of that rock at a particular point in time after you've thrown that rock. Remember, the rock is a little bit heavy. Call it 5, 6, 7 pound rock. The V here in this particular formula stands for your velocity. The velocity being the velocity of the rock that's being tossed up into the air. And the velocity indicating not only the speed but also the direction. Over here we have the letter t, or the variable t, and that represents our time in seconds. So I went ahead here and made just a very brief table of 3 different values for t and what the corresponding velocity for that rock would be. After 0 seconds representing the exact moment that the rock leaves your hand as you toss it up into the air. At that exact moment, what is the velocity of the rock? Well, at t of 0 seconds, we need to take that 0 and stick it here into our equation. What is 30 minus 0? Well, 0, because anything minus 0 is 0. What is 40 minus 0 then? 40. Positive 40. So the velocity of our rock at the moment that it leaves our hand is going to be 40. Positive 40. And we'll just say it's 40 feet per second. Let's take a look now at time 1 second. After the rock has been out of your hand for 1 second, what is the velocity now of the rock? Well, let's take this 1 for t and stick it back into our formula. 30 times 1 is 30, because t is 1 now. 30 times 1 is 30. 40 minus 30 is 10, positive 10. So after 1 second, the velocity of our rock now is 10. And let's just quickly ask the question, why? Why would the rock be going slower after you've thrown it? Just assume that you've thrown it straight up into the air. The reason why is gravity is working against it. Anything you throw up into the air is going to start slowing down and eventually turn around and come back down to the ground. So your rock is now going slower. It's still moving upward at 10 feet per second, but it's slower than what it was at the point that it left your hand. Well, let's take a look now at the time of 2 seconds. 2 seconds after the rock left the hand. Well, let's take that 2 and put it back into our formula. What is 30 times 2? 30 times 2 is 60. What now is 40 minus 60? 40 minus 60 is a negative 20. So what is the velocity of the rock 2 seconds after it was thrown up into the air? The velocity is now minus 20 feet per second. Well, how can you have a negative velocity? Well, remember that the velocity here is not just the speed of the object, it's also telling you that the direction that the object is moving. That's your hint. What's going on here? With a velocity of minus 20 feet per second, the rock is now coming down to the earth, or down to the ground, at 20 feet per second. The speed of the rock here is 20 feet per second going downward toward the earth. So when we had a positive velocity for these first 2 times, that positive velocity indicated that the rock was moving upward. That was the direction it was moving. Now it's moving at 20 feet per second, but it's now moving downward. And that's what that negative there indicates, that the direction of the rock is now downward. So the rock has already reached its height and is already back moving back downwards at the Earth at a rate of 20 feet per second. And that's all our review here tells us, is that negative numbers oftentimes represent a particular direction of something. For an example, if a positive number represents the speed an object is traveling upwards, a negative number represents the speed or velocity that an object is traveling downwards. That's it then. Session 23, using negative numbers within problems that have multiple operations within them.